GLP1 drugs like Ozempic may be a miracle for some, but can they be deadly? I'm Dr. Shalika. I'm an intensive care doctor and anesthesiologist. For 20 years, I've been working on the front line in the ER, in the operating theatre, and in the intensive care unit. A lot of you watching this video might be thinking of using Ozempic or the myriad other GLP1 drugs in order to lose weight, either for health reasons or for just purely cosmetic reasons. But I have a little story to tell you, so bear with me. This was a couple of years ago. There was a woman in her 40s who came in for a minor operation in what is called a day surgery. This is where you come in the morning, you have your operation, and you recover, and by the evening, you go home. So she was assessed in a preoperative clinic. She was in her 40s, she was quite fit, no medical problems, and she was not on any regular medications as far as we knew. No allergies, no airway problems, all the tests, EKG, everything was above board. She came in on the morning to have an operation done on her hand, which required a general anesthetic. So what is a basic general anesthetic? Basically where we make you unconscious by giving you medications, and then we have to take over certain functions for you, like your breathing. So we have to secure your airway and hook you up to a breathing machine, commonly known as a ventilator, so you can breathe. And we keep you on this breathing machine and we keep you unconscious until the operation is over. This patient was seen again on the morning of the operation. We assess her again, and there's a few other questions we ask, including, has she had anything to eat or drink in the last 6 hours? And she said no, she's not had anything. We asked her about other things as well, like gastric reflux. Does she have any sort of diseases like that? And she said no. She came into the operating theatre and we got everything ready, got her ready to go under, so to speak. And once we gave her the medication, something called propofol, maybe you've heard of it before, she was unconscious. And so far, so good. Everything seems to be going to plan. So we wait for a little bit to make sure that she is fully unconscious before we secure her airway with an airway device. And since this is a short surgery, we use something called a supraglottic airway device. The one we use is called an iGel. And once we got the airway secure, we're ventilating her lungs and we're going to take her into the operating theatre. But something seemed off. She started hiccuping. And sometimes it does happen, but this was a bit more concerning, and my spidey sense was tingling. I sensed that there was something wrong here. It just didn't feel right. So we didn't take her into the OR, and we had a very close look while she was still under the anesthetic. We noticed that she might be vomiting. Now, this can be pretty scary when it comes to an anesthetic. So main concern is, will she aspirate anything she vomits? And what that means is, have you ever noticed if you've eaten something and it goes the wrong way and you start violently coughing? Now that is a reflex to protect your airway and to protect your lungs from anything other than air, and you'll cough out any foreign object that goes in there. So these reflexes are suppressed during a general anesthetic. You can put whatever you want and it will go down your airway and into your windpipe, and from there into your lungs. And the catastrophic thing about this is, if you vomit something, you're usually going to be vomiting what's essentially the contents of your stomach. That could be food, and most importantly, it could be gastric acid. And what that acid does is, once you aspirate it, it'll give you what's called an aspiration pneumonia. And since it's acid, it can be really catastrophic. It's what we call a pneumonitis more than a pneumonia, which is a sort of a technical term. Now, the airway device that we use will protect her from aspiration to a certain extent, but it's not ideal. It's one we use for a short operation with a patient who is not at risk of aspiration. And from the history the patient gave us, she had no risk factors for reflux or aspiration. But yet here she was, and she was vomiting. But we were always prepared for any eventuality, so we quickly did what we had to do. We had to paralyze her with a paralytic agent and then put what's called an endotracheal tube down, which is a different airway device, which has a cuff that seals off the airway completely and protects it completely from aspiration. So we're pretty sure that she didn't aspirate at that point, but this could have been a catastrophe. And so now normally, if you've been fasting for 6 hours, there should be nothing in your stomach to really come out and vomit in such a manner. So we were quite concerned. She's safe, and we monitored her for some more time and she was fine, so we went ahead with the surgery. We thought we'll recover her and see how she does. So she had the surgery. She was fine. We woke her up. We took out the endotracheal tube, and once she was awake and she was breathing, now this could have been a disaster if she did aspirate. And even after she recovered, we made sure that she didn't go home that day, even though it was a day surgery. We kept her for observation just to make sure she was fine after 24 hours. Now, gastric emptying, or the emptying of the stomach, there is a specific time that it takes for the stomach contents to move from the stomach itself and onto the intestines. So that's around 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours for a healthy person. But in this situation, even though she was fasted for 6 hours, her stomach was still full. So there are some situations where even if you're fasted or you haven't had anything to eat, you might still keep stuff in your stomach. One is if you have what we call gastroparesis, where the emptying of the stomach is delayed. So I was wondering, did she have something affecting the nerves of her stomach that control the movement of food down the digestive tract? Something we call autonomic neuropathy, which can lead to gastroparesis. This could be caused by many things, one of the most common things being diabetes. But she didn't have a history of diabetes. So why, oh why, did she nearly aspirate? I needed to get to the bottom of this, so I went through her clinical records in more detail. So it turns out she had a child some time back, and during the pregnancy I noticed what is called the booking weight, that refers to her weight recorded at the start of her pregnancy, was quite high. She had a high recorded BMI, and obviously she had lost a lot of weight afterwards. It got me thinking. Once she was fully awake, we explained in detail what happened. We told her your stomach wasn't really empty for some reason and you almost aspirated. But you're safe, but we're going to keep you overnight for observation and see how you do in the morning. And if you're okay, we can discharge you at that time. And then I asked her, is there anything about your health that you might have missed? Maybe forgot to tell us. Have you had any diabetes? Have you had any problems with reflux disease in the distant past? I know I asked you before, but she said no, she doesn't. But eventually she did come out with something. She spilled the beans, so to speak. She was on a GLP1 medication. She was on Mounjaro, which is the more popular medication available here in the UK. And this was at a time when it was not very well known or not as widespread as it is now. So apparently she got it off the internet. I didn't go into the details, but she said she's been taking it on a weekly basis for some time just to lose some weight. She was not obese, but she was overweight, and she heard it was good to lose some excess pounds. And she didn't want to tell us because she thought it was illegal, which it kind of was. And that was fine. We've come across situations like this all the time, especially in the ER, when kids come in all intoxicated and they'll say, oh, I've just had a couple of pints. But you look at them, their pupils are dilated, their temperature's way off, their heart rate is racing. They've obviously been taking something a bit more exotic than your pint of Guinness. So we kept her in overnight. She was fine, and we sent her home in the morning. But this story could have had a much different, more tragic ending. If she had a full-on aspiration, she could have ended up in intensive care. She could have been on a long course of IV antibiotics. Her lungs could have been damaged permanently. Yes, there's a small chance it could have been fatal. Not a great chance, but the chance was there. So this is not to scare you, but this is some of the things that we're coming across with these GLP-1 drugs. Now, why did this happen? How do GLP-1 drugs work, and what is the inherent danger in them in this particular situation? So what is GLP? A lot of people say, oh, GLP this, GLP that, peptides, etc. So it stands for glucagon-like peptide, and glucagon is a well-known hormone. We associate it commonly with blood glucose control. It spikes your blood glucose. I used it quite a few times in the ER as an antidote to blood pressure medication overdoses. This GLP-1 is a type of hormone. It's a protein that is secreted by your intestines. So what are hormones? They are chemical messengers. You've got your thyroid hormones. Your insulin is a very famous hormone, and your glucagon-like peptide is also a hormone. So hormones are secreted by one part of the body. They go into the blood, they travel in the blood, and they will go to other organs and tell these organs and other parts of the body what to do. And these are the effects of the hormone. And all of this is part of the communication, command, and control system of your body. Your nervous system being the faster system and hormones being a more slower system. But even then, your GLP-1, it has a very short duration of action. It works for a few minutes after you had a meal. And the primary effects that we are interested in, of course, are to deal with weight loss. Basically, it will suppress appetite by increasing your satiety. You'll feel full quicker. It's got a variety of other actions as well, but in this situation, I'll focus on just the satiety and the weight loss. So one of the effects it does have is it delays gastric emptying. It inhibits the natural movement of your gut and your stomach, which is called peristalsis. These are the waves of motion that move food along through your digestive tract. And if you take your stomach, it's got two valves at either end. Your stomach is just like a big bag. And these two valves, one at the top closer to the esophagus and one at the bottom that leads to the intestine. So these valves have to be open in order for food to move on through. The valve that we're interested in is the furthest one down, and that's the one that controls movement of food into the intestines. It's called the pyloric sphincter. Don't laugh, there are many sphincters in the human body. This is just one of them. So the pyloric sphincter, when you have GLP on board, it constricts, it squeezes shut and remains shut until that GLP wears off. This keeps the food in the stomach longer, so more food accumulating there, more food in your stomach. It's great for weight loss. This is because you feel full all the time, you don't feel like eating, and it works really well in that respect. But in this situation, while giving a general anesthetic, it's dangerous because not only food accumulates, but you'll have a certain element of gastric acid in there as well. GLP-1, the naturally occurring GLP, it goes out of your system in a few minutes. It's very short acting. It has what we call a very short half-life. And this is the problem that the pharmaceutical companies had when they were trying to make this into a weight loss drug. When they found out all these amazing weight loss effects, but the problem was it didn't last for very long. So they managed to modify it with a bit of chemistry magic. So the synthetic GLP-1 analogs, these are drugs that have the same effect as your naturally occurring GLP-1 hormone, but they tweaked it in such a way that it lasts for much longer, and it lasts for about a week in this case, especially the Mounjaro that this patient was taking. Our patient has been having these weekly injections, and she didn't stop having them before her operation, because of course nobody told her. And that's the problem when you get these medications, especially during the earlier days of the GLP-1 craze. When people got them off the grey market, they're not going to be warned about everything, and she was afraid of disclosing this GLP-1 use. And we don't play a blame game here. That's fine. At least we managed to deal with that situation and we kept her safe. So that's the main effect with these GLP-1 drugs that we had to deal with and we had to be careful with. There are other side effects as well, some very rare like pancreatitis and thyroid cancer. And there are also lots of gastrointestinal disturbances related to this delayed emptying that we were talking about. So gassiness, being bloated, feeling like nauseous and vomiting all the time, etc., etc. But this is the one that we've had a personal experience with. And this was sort of our first introduction to these drugs in a clinical setting. So what is the takeaway from this experience? Now you might be thinking, oh my God, that's going to turn me off GLP-1 drugs forever. No, GLP-1 drugs can be a godsend, and I'm telling you this because I see the ill effects of being overweight and all the complications of being unhealthily overweight in so many of my patients. The high blood pressure, the heart diseases, the poor blood glucose control, the mental health issues, the effects in pregnancy. Most of the pregnant mothers that we come across are now obese. We've sort of modified our definitions now. We just treat these obese patients as a norm, which is not really great, but it's a reality we're living in. And if something can help them lose that weight safely, and believe me, that weight is going to be the major contributor to all these ill effects. Now, GLP-1 drugs have their own issues, especially with muscle mass loss when they're used incorrectly, but these drugs are here to stay. Some people might say, oh, it's cheating. Well, I don't care if you cheat, as long as you get that weight down safely. That's great. And that comes to the other point, safety. Any medical intervention has risks. You're not going to get away from that. Every medical intervention, no matter how small it is, it's got its own risks. So we have to balance the benefits with the risks. Even a general anesthetic is quite a risky thing. And the GLP-1 drugs, now that they're out, we started doing more studies on them, especially doing operations and doing anesthesia. We're getting more information, we're getting more evidence to modify our practice. So the Royal College of Anaesthetists have got some guidelines now. We encourage our patients to please disclose if you're taking GLP-1 drugs or not. And if you are, the recommendation varies according to the drugs, and we're supposed to tailor the plan to the patient itself. It's not universal guidelines. Usually for the drugs like Mounjaro or Ozempic, we'll tell you to hold off for 1 week because that's the usual duration of action for those drugs. And we might want to consider using more advanced methods to secure the airway, like what we call a modified rapid sequence induction and various other techniques to tailor the anesthetic method or the anesthetic plan. But so that's a little story about Ozempic or Mounjaro and any other GLP-1 drugs. Actually, they're great medications when they work, and I think we're having an obesity epidemic, and everything we're doing, it's not really giving us tangible results. When I see patients, most of them are overweight in the population that I'm seeing, and it's causing us so many problems. And it's not just patients, it's friends, colleagues, so many other people who are using GLP-1 drugs with positive benefits. And other things that help as well, GLP-1 drugs, they're associated with reduced risks of neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's disease. They are known to reduce what we call neuroinflammation, oxidative stress injuries, and things like that, and even cardiovascular effects, improving your heart health. These are now well-established benefits of Ozempic-like drugs. And even cancer, there was a 2024 retrospective study done which showed GLP-1 use was associated with low risk of course, obesity-related cancers, but still, it is a positive effect. So this was when compared with the use of insulin or metformin that was used to control diabetes in these patient populations. So I have to reiterate, GLP-1 drugs are really great, but we have to be aware of what they do, and we have to modify our approach to them and modify our approach to the health issues as we use them. So anyway, I hope you found this video interesting and informative, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Any opinions, if you had any events with GLP-1 drugs, positive or otherwise, and if you feel like these sort of tidbits of information help you, please remember to subscribe. This channel is purely going to be about medical health and longevity information based on my own experience with patients. I've been working in this so-called business for 20 years, and I feel like I should pass this knowledge on not just to my medical colleagues, but to you, the wider public. And YouTube is such a great platform. I believe we should make use of it to get this information out to everybody, because we don't have that time to spend 1 hour with a patient sometimes. Sometimes I do, but it's very rare. So hopefully you can take something away from this, and check on the screen. There should be other videos on this channel that you can check out. So thank you for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe.